does. It's not rocket science. We just need small classes, well-trained and respected teachers, and students who are not coming to school mired in the greatest obstacle to learning that there is. It's called poverty, and we need to bring in this high-stakes testing business, because it's not educating our kids, it's sending the challenged learners down the school-to-prison pipeline, and being used as an excuse to shut down so-called underperforming schools, which are essentially communities that have been disinvested from. This is an indicator of poverty. We need to ensure that our communities have the jobs that they need and the housing that they need, and to end that poverty, and then we can have a really good school system. That is the sitting them down and drilling them with boring rote memorization for a pen and pencil test. Anybody out there sick of those high-stakes tests? Although instead, we introduce again, we bring back art and music and multiple-choice memorization test. Instead, we teach to the whole student for lifetime learning. Campaign, as she continues to move to the right, for example, by appointing Ken Salazar to her transition team to head that team. This is a guy who says fracking never hurt anybody. He says. So we can see the writing on the wall with Hillary Clinton. He's also a big supporter for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He is a lobbyist. That revolution lives on and is here today. Inside of a counter-revolutionary party. As the Green Party, at the time that this political realignment is happening, as the Republicans kind of sail into the sunset, and the Democrats expand to become the one massive corporatist party funded by the predatory banks, the fossil fuel giants, the war profiteers, and the health insurance companies, we say it's time to retire that kind of old dirty politics. The American people are clamoring like never before for other voices and other choices. So we are going to do everything we can to open up the presidential debate so they are not just in our dreams, right here, right now, in Colorado. It's in our hands. Thank you so much.
White male combat veteran, I've really noticed the drastic increase in hate among Muslim communities and communities of people of color. I'm just wondering, if you became president, what would you do about that?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Arn. Thank you for your service, and thank you for raising this really critical issue. And there are many things that we need to do about this, and it's both hate and intolerance towards Muslims, towards the LGBTQ community, especially members of the trans community. It's also towards African Americans and the violence that we see in our policing and just built into our economy for that matter. So we're actually calling for, number one, a really clear agenda on the part of our leaders. We need not just lip service, we need a really strong agenda for equality and justice in Capitol Hill and from all of our political leadership. So among other things, we are calling for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to address these ongoing inequalities and this climate of racism and fear. Because the crisis is not only an anti-Muslim crisis and an anti-Black crisis, it's also a crisis of violence because we live surrounded by so much hate and fear, and people are armed and ready to shoot. And in fact, we know that owning a gun puts your household at risk. You are 22 times more likely to be shot or killed by that gun than you are to be using that gun against an intruder. So, we need to move towards rational gun control as part of addressing this climate of hate and fear. And we also need to get assault weapons off the street. There is no excuse for military-grade weapons. And I think, we need to begin to develop a climate of trust. And that includes trust towards our government, because our government is abusive. And we see this among too many police forces where the forces are militarized and weaponized, and people are very afraid. There are countries around the world where police forces are not armed. And in fact, there are some countries that have it both ways, where some of their districts are armed and some of them aren't. But they found that where the police aren't armed, the police are actually much safer, and the communities are safer, because there's just less of a fear thing going on. So I think we really need to come to terms with our fears, and that's what this Truth and Reconciliation Commission is about, an opportunity to get together in a facilitated community way to tell our stories, to bring art and music and community building and trust building into our discussion so we can get on the same page and begin to move forward in a more peaceful.
Globalism versus nationalism seems to be a prevalent dichotomy in this election, and a lot of voters who are drawn to outsider candidates seem to indulge themselves in. Where do you think you would place yourself on that spectrum of globalism versus nationalism?
Great. In my view, we have to transcend that dichotomy because we are on one small boat right now. Either we will all sink together or we will all sail together. Towards Saudi Arabia and our policy towards everyone. So we're not singling out Israel when we say that we need a foreign policy based on international law and human rights, so that we simply will not be funding, and in the case of Israel it's $8 million a day, we will not fund governments or militaries who are systematically and egregiously violating human rights and international law, and groups in Israel and Palestine are already supporting. They don't have any trouble making friends, building community, and creating a way forward on a person-to-person basis, on a community-to-community basis. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot of U.S. money right now, which is going into Israel, coming from one gambling magnate, in fact, who's supporting an extremely dangerous predatory policy in Israel, and he's not living there to deal with the dangerousness of that policy that he is funding by being the main supporter of the Netanyahu government. So my hope is that the people of Israel and of Palestine, we need to support them to actually lead the way forward to overcome the power of these international elites who are just extremely, what shall we say, racist, misinformed, violent. We need to get their destructive policies out of the way and let us start building a compassionate and humane community.
Thank you everyone for coming. If you live in Colorado Springs or in El Paso County, please stop at the table outside and make sure that we have your name and email address so we can tell you what's going on. We need your support for this campaign. Thank you everyone